Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2, case 2 of Many Maps of Merlin, this time on the FMWC UK channel. We're going to be looking at how to solve this horrible case that I wrote. It's a little bit more difficult than case 1, so if you've not seen that video, go check it out over on my channel. I'll link that down below. Then come back here and watch this through, and hopefully you'll feel a little bit more confident with those map levels. But first, in case you're new here, new to the channel, welcome. This is FMWC UK. We are soon rebranding to MEWC UK. More on that in the future. We are the home of the Competitive Excel World Championship UK chapter. We're very excited to be bringing our live finals via Livestream in early September. Congratulations to everyone that made it to those live finals. We're very excited for that event. So make sure you subscribe to follow along with that and anything else we might be able to share before then, including some other tips, tricks, and bits of training. For now, though, we're going to jump straight into solving part 2. Like I said, this is going to build on some of the stuff we talked about with case 1. I'm not expecting this to be done in 30 minutes. It's probably going to be a 45 minutes to an hour long video. I am going to have a 30-minute timer to see how far through we get, but I'm going to be talking you through the approaches as we go, so I am expecting it to take a bit longer. Without further ado, let's pop on over to the case. And apologies, by the way, if you can hear my fan in the background, it's very warm today and we have no air conditioning, so the fan is unfortunately having to sit right behind the microphone. So this is the same instructions as part 1, case 1. The wise wizard Merlin, defender of the kingdom of Camelot, friend to Arthur Pendragon, magnificent mage of mystery, has sensed a terrible dark presence. She lurks across the land and must be found. He has gathered his scrolls and maps to hunt down this scourge, so he might send her back from whatever dimension whence she came. We know from case 1, this is actually Lana Banana we're talking about, and we know that case 2 is taking the ideas a step further to deal with some of the more complicated things that arise with map style questions. We have one scroll, which is this one here, and then we have 3 maps, getting increasingly more difficult with what we're doing, and we also have Beware the Dark One, which we solved the easy version for case 1, but there's some additional steps for the version in case 2. I'm going to come back to these side quests later on, but to start with, we're just going to jump straight in to quest 1. Combined score here is not going to show up on my score sheet on the video, but the reason this is 1090 is I messed up when I set up the scoring for this, and for some reason it adds to 1090, not 1250. It's a training case. We will let it go. I mean, it's already been out for a couple of months because I am well behind on making this video. Scroll Ancient Anne. Of course, in case 1, it was called an ancient scroll, but it's all messed around. His first defense against the Dark One, Merlin has retrieved an ancient scroll that contains a spell that promises protection to those who can decode it. The reason this is backwards now is because this time we're going the other way around. In the previous one, we had a cell reference, we had to find the word, but for this time, we want to know where the word appears on the sheet. The whole scroll is found in column B of the scroll protection sheet. O is found in the first line, which is B3. Our hint here, because I included some hints for this to try and help people through this case. In case 1, we looked up the word based on the cell. This time we need to find the cell based on the word. Can you match the word to its position on the list? So an easy way to do this would be to use X-match. So if we X-match this and go to our scroll protection, I'm going to start here because we know that O is in position number 3, so let's not mess around with having to add things on afterwards. And I'm going to lock those with F4. So that gives us our 3, and I'm just going to put our B in front of it so that we get what we need. And that should give us the answers. This time, no hint as to the evil ones, the dark ones. Come did he say? The Dark One's identity. Uniquely positioned, quest 2. I just had that. Where did I put it down? Merlin, probably, or me, literally all the time, every time I'm looking for my keys. Some icons in Merlin's quarters appear only once. For each of the icons below, on which cell in Merlin's quarters do they appear? Now, you could do this visually. we're going to try and do this programmatically. It's the reverse of quest 1, where we had, of case 1's version of this, where we had the cell reference, we had to find a thing, we could use indirect. For now, we need to go about a different way of doing this. I have suggested using to call here. You could try and do it in a single cell. I think that's a little bit beyond what we need to do now. So let's try and do it using what we talked about there. Now, this is building on something that we actually talked about briefly during the Lana Banana quest 5, side quest 5 of that first one. So we're going to use toCall to turn this entire map into a list of everything on it. We're also going to, what do we need? We need, case 2. We need the cell name. So I'm going to do the same thing to call. And I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go like this and like this. Now the reason this works is because we have got those names at the top and we've got those numbers down the side. If we had that as its own thing, it would be a 2D array. And then we're using toCall just like we do with the contents. So they're going to be of the same orientation. Additionally, another way you could do this is you could use the map function to map the whole thing, take the cell, and we'd want cell address of the cell. That would give us the names, it would have the things in, we'd have to substitute out those dollar signs, and then we could toCall it. We'll talk more about that later on. But this, if you've got these labels, then why not use them? Good to have that map in your back pocket in case you're given a map without those labels, but that's good enough for now. Now we know each of these only appears once, which means that they're only going to appear in our list once, so we don't need to worry about whether or not it's the first result, because there is only one result. We're going to look it up as a full array and get those results there. And that should be level 2, 100%. Perfect. Quest 3, very hard. The Matchmaker. Better make that triple. Now that is playing on quest 5, I think, which was I'm seeing double of the previous case. Each creature in East Camelot yearns for something. For each of the creatures listed below, what's the minimum number of moves they must make to find what they desire? They can move one cell at a time, up, down, left, right. They cannot move diagonally. It's similar to quests 4 and 5 in case 1, except this time you must find the starting and target cells yourself. There's now also multiple starting cells and multiple target cells. So in case 1, for quest 4, we had a single starting cell and a single target cell. They were given to us. In quest 5, we had a single starting cell, but multiple target cells. This time, we're going to have to not only find those, but get all of the all those combinations and work it out. So, first things first, we need to find where the ducks are. So let's start by looking up each of these in our East Camelot icons. We've got the name, and we're going to want the icon because that's what we use. We could also do this the other way. We could go to this source here. We've not built this out yet. Let's build this out. We're going to take the exact same calculations we did here. Let's just pull those in. But we're going to have to repoint these references to be our East Camelot map. And if I was being smart like Dim early, I would probably call this something in the named range thing there. But I am not that clever today. Equally, we just need to change these to make sure that we've got all of those and all of those. Excellent. Are those the same length? They are. That's what we want. So, cell, icon. Now we could look these up and have their names here. I'm doing it here for now. That might be a mistake. We shall see. So now we want a list of all the places where it is a duck. So let's go back to our list here. We're going to filter this list, making sure we lock it. And we want to filter it where this list is equal to duck. That's because I went to Merlin's quarters. Apologies. Apologies. So we can see the duck is in 2 cells. Let's lock that in as well. Pull that across so we can see the rabbit is also in 2 cells. Now, the way that I'm going to go about this is I am going to build it out and then I'm going to collapse it down into a let. But we could do a data table. I might do a data table. We shall see. So to start with, I'm going to transpose this out and pull it up. And just like we did with this set here in case 1, we worked things out. We used row of indirect and column of indirect and then did some calculations. So to start with, I want the row of indirect of this. And I want to take away the row of indirect of this. And because we want the positive difference, regardless of whether we have the larger one first or after, we're going to wrap that in abs. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add that to the exact same calculation, but we're going to replace both row with column singular, to get the column number of those. And we can see that the taxicab difference between these two is 9 steps. And we could just make sure that everything was locked in the correct orientations. Reds as the row, blues as the column. And we could just drag that across and find what the smallest number is, which is 8, which matches our example. But we pull this down here and we do this. Based on the ants, we can see there are a lot of combinations in those later levels, which is too much to do just building each of these out individually. So we're going to want to try to build in something which turns this into something a little bit more dynamic. So let's just take this calculation and pop it up here as some text for a second. First thing I want to do is make sure we've got some way of getting these both, each combination included. So let's take this dynamic array. I'm just going to be nice and boring and use a little delimiter to split those out like that. And then I'm going to take this calculation and apply it to these. We want to apply it to each thing individually. So we're going to use the map function. We're mapping this entire array in a custom lambda. That custom lambda is going to have the cell names as its thing. So I'm just going to then make it return cell names for now. So you can see for now all we're doing is we're taking that original array we had and we are replacing that with just itself for now. If we wanted to, we could say text before cell names. And I use the semicolon. We can see we're getting Y19 for each of these and AA20 for each of those. If we did text after, we would get each of our rabbit positions. And I've just remembered why it was the owl and the cat in the other levels, because it was the owl and the pussycat. I'm going to use a data table with the map function. There are other ways of doing it, as I've hinted at with this. I'm going to do a data table. I know I talked about using let, but let's use a data table for this. So for now, all we want to do is, I'm not going to be neat about this. We already worked out the calculation. So I'm just going to make that our calculation in our lambda. Now that is going to give us just a single answer because that is based on those first cells. However, we used text before on cell names a minute ago. And we're going to replace our other green reference with that. And then it's going to be text after for these. Now, what have I messed up? Let's see. Place that with text before. cell names. There we go. That's more like it. So replace both of those first positions with that, and both of those second positions with text after. Now this is not good practice. Look at this. Look at this formula. That's horrible. That's horrible. We should really set that out in additional steps. But for now, because we'd already built it and it's a competition, we're just going to run with it. But essentially we're doing the exact same thing as here, but we're applying it to each combination of these. Because we know this is going to get pretty massive, I'm just going to move this a couple of things over there so that we don't get in the way with our data table. If you've not used data tables before, they are a great thing for this competition. They are really, really useful. They do require us to add in one more step though. So we are going to say that we are currently looking at example, whatever we are, example 3. Yes, we are indeed. And we're going to look up whatever level we're looking at in our list here and return from this list here. And now rather than pointing to these, we're going to point them to these two here. And this means that if I wanted to start looking at level 24, it would pull that through and we would get our results here. And then our final answer, as you may have already worked out, is going to be the minimum of this dynamic array here. Now the way that these things work, these data tables, is you're going to tell it you want to replace this value here with each of these values in turn, and for it to tell you the answer. So we want 21. We could do this manually and type them all out, but data tables let us do this in bulk. So I'm going to set it back to example 3. The important thing is to have your final calculation in one cell and your game numbers diagonally down to the left and then down. There are other ways of doing this. There are also 2D data tables. We're not going to cover that now. We're just going to do the way I most often do them. Select the whole thing, go to Data, What If Analysis, Data Table, and this is where people get a little bit confused. Is it the row input cell because they're in rows, or the column input cell? The thing is in a column, so the thing in the column, we want to replace this value here. So we want this to be 21 to give us the answer for 21. And sometimes in the competition, you then need to go and change the calculation mode for this to work. This one has worked, but sometimes it gives you zeros. I just type calc up there, automatic calculation, and it works. Data tables can slow your stuff down. You can't build a data table on a data table, etc., etc. But it is very useful if you work out how to use them. That's a little introduction. I recommend you go and have a play if you've not seen it before. Blimey, 17 minutes into solving and we've only done 3 levels, but we have done lots of chatting. A path of their own, I like to move it. It's not uncommon for movements to be chained together. For each feature below, what's the name of the icon in the cell they finish in after all their movements? Use the East Camelot map. Do not worry about going beyond the map, and do not worry about terrain types. So we had, in case 1, a list of directions. I'm just going to pull that through. It's worth making one of those in a reference sheet for yourself if you are competing in these competitions quite regularly. Next thing you want to do is we want to split each of these movements out into their individual things. Now, multiple ways to do this. You could use mid, etc. I am well on the regex train at the minute, and because this is a harder case, we are going to use some of these harder ideas like data tables and regex. Regex extract is great because you don't need to worry about the lengths of individual characters. We just want to take out everything from this text. A dot says anything at all, which is what we're interested in here, and 1 for every match, and that will give us our list of movements. Let's pop that there. And then we want to know the total horizontal movement and the total vertical movement. So we're going to look up this whole thing here, in here, and get the horizontal movement, making sure we lock the relevant things. And there's no horizontal movement for those. These ones are going to spill. Let's not worry about that for now. And just wrap the whole thing in a sum. So we can see for this example, we have got 6 horizontal movements, meaning 6 movements to the right. I'm going to take this whole thing and pop it into, whoops, I'm going to take this whole thing and pop it into this cell as well, breaking other things in the process. But instead of the horizontal movement, we want to return the vertical movement. That gives us -2 because we're moving 2 up, and we can pull that down as well. Now the other thing we're going to want, I'm going to pull these references out to here. The other thing we want is the starting cell. I cannot spell. Each of the creatures are unique, so we can use our XLOOKUP again, look up the shark, first of all, we're going to have to look up shark in this list to get the icon, making sure we lock both of these. Merlin's quarters again, apologies. Apparently, that is the mistake we are destined to make all day today. There we go. Making sure we lock both of these. There we go. So there is our shark icon. And then we're going to look this up in turn in our little helper column. East Camelot this time in the icons, returning the cell name. We go, and that is our starting cell. Gonna move these even further out, apologies for that. And here we're just going to use our flash fill trick for now. We could use more regex, that would be great, but we're just going to keep it easy, and then we're going to use equals column of indirect of this to get our column number as well. So now we want the address of our starting row plus our entire vertical movement and our starting column, our starting column plus our total horizontal movement. Now here we have got our locked symbols, which we don't want. We can actually change that nice and easily in this by saying we want option number 4 relative. So there we go, it's in D10. And then we just want to look up what is in D10. We look this up in Merlin's quarters, no, East Camelot, in the icon list, returning from the cell list. No, the other way around. In the cell list, returning from the icon list. Making sure we lock those. And it's the icon, and we want the name. So we're going to look up the icon. If I was smart, I'd have made these all tables and named them all. Instead, they just look like tables. Look up the icon. No. Look up the icon here in East Camelot. Oh, making the same error over and over today. I must be tired. Apologies. There we go. It's a deciduous tree. Fantastic. The crocodile wants the elf. The eagle wants the nest. The hedgehog wants the courthouse, because you know hedgehogs love law, and so on. So there we go. That is how we do those multiple movements. Not too much different from doing what we did over here. In terms of adding up those movements. It's just we're doing it for each of those in turn. Battle's Eve, quest number 5. They train for this terrain. This quest uses the Battle for Camelot map for each of the cells below. What's the terrain type and the content in the corresponding cell? Give your answer as terrain type _ content. Now, this is where we need to do some pre-work. So, we're going to make a copy of this map. I'm just going to pop it underneath for now. And we have terrain types based on the colour. And we're going to use that fact to help us out here. So we're going to find anything based on the format of this. And then in this entire range here, we're going to replace that with field. It couldn't find anything to replace. Now, is that because something weird is going on with the format? Quite possibly. So let's go into format, having got that field done, and we don't care about any other parts of that, just that there. Replace all. We can see our fields get replaced with field. Equally, we want to replace the dark green with forest. I'm just going back into our format and our fill. Choose format from cell again. There we go. We'll grab that one. But as we know, we actually don't want to worry about the borders or the font. Make sure that we are replacing in this lot here. We've got 508 bits of forest. Next up is the water. Choose format from cell, water. Same step again. Let's make sure that we are not worrying about the border or the font, because that is going to mess things up. Make sure we select the regions we want. There's only water this far down. Now we could use our old control and enter trick to do these all and select them manually, but this is a little bit faster here. I might actually do that for these bridges because there's only this many of them, just to show you what I mean, in case you missed the other video. So we're going to type equals bridge, and we're going to press control and enter so that it pops that in to each of those. I didn't want to press equals at all on that, did I? We just wanted to type bridge. There we go. And finally, I'm going to do the same thing here with these. I'm going to go bada bing, bada boom. In fact, I could have just replaced blanks, I think, on this last step. But everything else has a name. I'm going to call that Camelot. Excellent. So we're going to do the same things that we did as before. We're going to get everything on here. There we go. That's the icons. Icon. Icon. Thank you, keyboard. Cell. Terrain. So we are going to use to call again. We're going to use our little broadcasting trick from before. And now we're going to do the same thing with our terrain map down below. And then we go back to our case. We want the terrain type underscore the name of what is in it. So let's just move back to the Camelot nearer so we don't have the same issues. Content creators can't spell the word content. Who knew? We're going to simply look up these icons from this list here and return it from the names. And then we want this list here with an underscore and then this list here to give us what we need. Going back to our case, it says if it's empty, say empty, which is why we've got a second example there to show that edge case. So where it says NA, we want to say if error empty. Something's gone on with my camera. Okay, we're back. I'm not sure what happened there. I've tried to put the time roughly back to where it was. I don't know where we were. I think we were near the out of time, but we're going to keep solving anyway. Apologies about the weird glitch with the camera there. So we are going to look up. Now we've got everything that we need. We're going to look up our cell name in our cell names, making sure we lock it. And we're going to return from this list here. Matches our examples. And we've got one wrong there. Why have we got one wrong there? because something went wrong with the replacing, clearly. So let's go back to Battle for Camelot. We would have seen, in an actual case, we would have seen probably the fact that we've got a icon in that answer. And it's because of this whole formatting thing. So let's just copy that down to there. Weird things like that do happen in cases. It doesn't matter how many times they're tested. There's always weird things that will mean that most of the approaches, you do just need to do a quick double check for what you're doing to see if something's gone wrong. But there we go, we have got that sorted. Quest 6. We are out of time if we were doing this live, but we have been talking about it, so let's stick with it. Quest 6 looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river. Battle's Eve. Looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river. Did I call them the same thing? That's a bit boring for me. The quest uses the Battle for Camelot map. The enemy is approaching and Morgan Le Fay has cast a spell to reduce the short-sightedness of the monsters. If you remember, in case 1, they kept running into trees. They still move predictably, but they have learned to avoid obstacles such as trees. The river still stands as a great defence for Camelot, as the monsters cannot swim, so must cross one of the bridges. The monsters will move south if they can. However, if doing so would take them into a cell containing a tree or water, they will try to move left. If that's also not possible, they will try to move east. They cannot go outside the map. At least one of these movements will always be possible, and the monster will always try to move south, then west, then east. They can enter the same cell as another monster. They will never end up in a loop. The monster in each starting cell, how many times must they move before they reach a bridge? For a hint on Hide This Here, the first challenge is working out which terrain a cell has. We did that previously. Do we always need to know the terrain, or are there some cells where it matters more than others? Could we use a semi-manual approach in Quest 4 to help us do it quickly, or find and replace? Once we know which cells contain the water, it becomes a similar problem to Quest 7 of Case 1. However, instead of hitting a tree, the monster will try a different movement. Remember that it will always move south if it can. If not, it will try to move west. And finally, if they both fail, it will try to move east. I'm actually going to build this up a little bit differently. So if we go here, what was that? That was Quest 5. What happens if we move west from each of these? So let's first of all do row and column. Now here we're going to use maps just because I find it quicker and easier. So we could use the names as we have previously and interact, but I'm going to use map and take each of those to its corresponding row, and then make sure we wrap that in a 2-col. Then we're going to do the exact same thing, but rather than row, we're going to use column. And there are our references there. Now, south, west, east in that order are what the monsters try to move. So if we move south, then it's going to be the address of this +1, and then that column, making sure we have relative, B3. If we move west, then it's going to be, we're not going to move on the row, but we are going to move -1. And likewise, if we move east, we're going to move +1 on our columns. So those are the 3 positions we could end up in. The next thing is to check whether or not these take us outside the map. The only one that's going to take us outside the map, because we try to move south first, and we're always going to hit a river, hit the river before we hit the bottom of the map, hit a bridge, which is where we want to finish. We don't need to worry about that. East is always the last thing we do. We know we can always move east if we can't do the other 2, so we just need to check, is west out of bounds? And to do that, all we're going to do is we're going to say left of this equals A. Actually, I'm going to do, is it not A? So is west possible? Okay, next thing is we want to look up each of these individually in our cells and get our contents. That's going to give us an error for some of them, but that's fine. Make sure we lock things, and we can then do that all the way down. Let's call these southwest and east again. Now, the next thing is, let's just check really quickly what types of trees have we got. We've only got one type of tree, great. And we've only got water. So those are the things we're interested in, are water and trees. So the first thing is, can south. So that's going to be, is this equal to a tree? Or is that equal to water? Okay, so south icon, west icon, east icon. South terrain, west terrain, east terrain. So this is how I'm going to build this out here. So we're going to say the south terrain, just like this here, we're going to do the same thing, returning the terrain. Sorry, that one there, returning the terrain. Again, pull those all down. Okay, so what did I do? There we go. I broke stuff. Oh well, who knew? Cool. So, can we move south? So is this equal to a tree? If so, we can't. Or is it equal to water? In which case we can't. And then we want the reverse of that. So if it's not water and it's not a tree, then we can hit south. That's also true for can west. And we can always move east if we can't do the others. I'm going to wrap this one. In fact, I'm just going to wrap this one in an and say also is west possible. No, that's not doing that for us. Let's do it if NA then, because the NA is because we are out of bounds. If NA, false. Okay. So for this cell here, if we can move south, then we're going to end up in the south cell. Otherwise, if we can move west, then we end up in the west cell. Otherwise, we end up in the east cell. Move to. So that's the cell each of these cells move to. Now we might have some areas near the bottom, but those aren't going to affect us in the question. Now that was a little bit around about the houses, but now it's really easy because now we can say we're going to look up this one here in this list here and return where they move to, making sure we lock these references. So AD18 moves to AD19. We have our Battle of Camelot map. We know there are 50 possible moves. We're not going to need 50 because we're only going as far as the bridges, but let's build it out anyway. I'm just going to do it like this so we can see things here. I'm going to pop that there and change the reference to this. And pull that across to 50. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pop this here for now. I'm going to look up each of these in our list and see if our contents, not contents, our terrain, is a bridge. So let's lock those. So field, 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 and then we want to know at what stage do we hit a bridge. So we want to look up bridge in this, and we want to return from this array here. And that gives us 14, which is what we're looking for. Now, because of the way we built this, we should be able to just pull this down. Whoops, not that far. A little bit too far, but that's fine. Hopefully, this gives us our answers. And it does. Excellent. Right, impossibly hard the battle for Camelot. Sound trumpets, let our bloody colours wave, and either victory or else the grave. Henry VI, Part 3. The time of peace is over, Camelot is at war, and we must predict when they will reach our final defensive wall, so we might plan our counter-attack. As the enemies approach Camelot, they follow the movement patterns as in Quest 6, which is one of the reasons we went and built it out fully, as opposed to just in part all the way to the bridge. This includes all blockages, but they no longer stop at the bridge. Instead, they will keep moving forward until they reach row 44. Row 44, if we go over to our map, being this defensive, the last row before this final defensive wall. Where they're blocked by the final defensive wall in row 45. They may enter the same cell as another creature or a member of the army at any time without penalty. Each creature also has a different speed. A speed of 2 means it can make 2 movements. They need not be in the same direction. For each starting cell, find the enemy that starts at that position, then use its speed to calculate how many turns it will need to reach row 44. All monsters are able to reach 44, so we don't need to worry about circulars. For example, N6 is a ninja, it moves 2 steps each time. So the first thing we want to do is an indirect to get the name. In fact, we don't need an indirect because we've built out our tables. We can do without indirect. We can just use this here and look that up in our little lookup that we built in the previous levels. We then want to find out what our speed is based on the wee table here. Again, making sure we lock these. They look like tables, but they're not. Turn them into tables and it will help you. Do what I do, not what I say. And now the next thing that we want to do is we want to find where they go on each of the steps. So let's build this out because they can't do more than 50 steps, which is great. We know they're going to stop at row 44 anyway. And we're going to need to do a calculation for that at the end, so let's build that out over there. So our first step is going to look up this here, just like we did in the previous one, in our cells, and find where our result cell is. There we go. But we have our speed to worry about. So we're going to do this as so. So we're going to create a let function to help us out. And I'm going to call this step 1. Step 1. Step 2 is going to be looking up step 1 in the same way. So the ninja, step 2 is the second step. And then our fastest speed is the imp, which moves it at 3. So we're going to do the same thing again with step 3. So for example, step 3 in this case is M7. Now we're going to say, let's use switch rather than if, just because I'm going to use this. We're going to say, if it's 2, then step 2. If it's 3, then step 3. Otherwise, step 1. We don't need to do the default. We could have done if 1 and so on. What have I spelt wrong? And where? That should be 3 and that should be 2. There we go. Name error still. Okay, let's work this out. So step 1, step 2 is erroring for some reason. Why is step 2 erroring? Because it's referencing itself. Right, step 2 needs to reference step 1, and step 3 needs to reference step 2. Okay. Excuse my wee diversion there. That looks much better. So our first step is taking our given cell and moving one on. Our second one takes the previous result and moves another one, and the third one does that again. So we are going to do our switch statement this time. If it's 1, then it's step 1. If it's 2, then it's step 2. If it's 3, then it's step 3. And we can see we want 2 steps of going down to N7, and then I assume we're going left, west to M7. So let's pull this across. We're getting NAs because I did not think to lock our switch step. And then in this one, we want our starting cell to be the previous step. Now we should be able to copy that across. Still getting some NAs, but that's because things are hitting at the end of the map. Let's bring these down so we've got them for all of the levels, all of the games. There we go. And the final thing we want to do is find when do they hit row 44. So let's do map each of these. What am I wanting to do here? For each of these, I want to find their row number and then turn that row number into, find the row number and then find out if they're at row 44 or not. So we probably want to wrap this whole thing here in an if error, and let's just say said 100, because it's never going to be that high, so that's a perfectly fine thing to use as our placeholder. So let's do map each of these values to its numbers. Row of the indirect of the val. That's giving us a spill. I'm going to bring it up here. So 7, 9, 11, 13, and so on. And then we want to XLOOKUP in this. We want to look for the value 44 in this map, returning from this list here. But we want, if it's not found, we want you to find, use the match mode for exact match or next larger item. I'm going to pull that down to here. What that means is if we hit, if we don't have a 44, because we go from 43 to 45, for example, then it will look for where it's 45 and match that instead. So that does give us the 22. And we can pull that down like that. Now that hasn't worked. Now why has that not worked? Do I mean -1? Now they're all wrong because they now all need that +1. No. Can't solve my own case. How embarrassing. Once we know the number of individual movements, how can we compare this to... Let's have a look. R17, so 1 movement. This is because I have locked this here. Let's take that back to a 1 in there. It's because I've locked this cell here to, not to the column, but to the exact cell. So let's just fix that for a moment. And hopefully that should give us the answers. That's all that was wrong. Very silly mistake, locking the cell in the wrong way. So another way of doing this, as I hinted at here, is you could work out the straight number of movements needed and then divide by the speed, which I think probably was easier, but my brain is starting to lag having done both cases back to back. So let's just get these side quests done and hopefully keep this video less than an hour long. To make the game more exciting, we have 5 bonus questions. When combining all the icons on all 3 maps, how many icons are used exactly 7 times? So I'm going to create a new sheet. They're not called bonuses in this, they're called side quests. So side quest 1, we want a list of everything on each of the maps. So let's grab that and fee stack it with everything in our Merlin's quarters, which we have here, and stack that with everything in East Camelot. And now for this, we're going to take a unique version of this list, and then we are going to count ifs in this range here, based on this being the criteria, and that gives us what we want. And then we want to do count ifs this 7, we want how many are used exactly 7 times. 10, there we go. And if the B in cell O28 follows all the directions from quest 4 in the order they appear, excluding the example, where does it land? So this should be really easy now because we actually have done all that logic already. So I'm just going to concat all of these together. This now will just pull those out. Our starting cell is O28. Did I say? O28. Pull these down to here to calculate those. Pull this down to here, this down to here, and this down to here. AF29. What is in AF29? Well, that can't be right then, can it? Something has gone wrong. Have I included the example? No, I haven't. If this type the name of the icon. Let's try this a different way. Because we'd actually worked all of these out, we should be able to just sum these up. In fact, let's just compare those answers. We should be able to sum those up as well. So far, so good. Those are matching. So what has gone wrong? These were static, they weren't calculated. So that's 28. That one is calculated, so we want a F46. That's the problem with using flash fill is, there we go. So it's a cactus. So let's write the word cactus in the box. Fantastic. King Arthur's moving through East Camelot to collect some powerful artifacts. Following the Q3 movement rules, he starts at his position on the map, first collects the fleur-de-lis, then Excalibur, then a Holy Grail, then moves to Merlin's cell. So let's bring that text over with us to East Camelot. So what are we using? We are wanting King Arthur. Then we want fleur-de-lis, which I've not got spaces in. Then we want the Excalibur. then the Holy Grail, and then Merlin. Each of these things should be appearing once, so let's grab our position of each of these based on our things. So let's first of all get our icons, and then we can look up our icons to get our position. Quest 4 was the up, down, left, right, I believe. Oh, no, it's the diagonal, so we can move diagonally. So, slightly different calculation for that in terms of how the movements work, because we can move diagonally. So we could do this manually. So we know it's AH27 to begin with, going to Z4. Z4 up there. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 23. To S34. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We're in S. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Sometimes manual is best. To N15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And finally back to Merlin in AL33. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So let's see. Is the answer 96? Nope, I have messed something up. Let's have a quick look. Oh, it does say Quest 3. Silly me. I misread. I thought it said Quest 4. It does say Quest 3, so that means we cannot move diagonally. So let's just work this out then the way we did before. So we're going to want the absolute value of the row of this, take away the row of that, and we want to add that on to the column values of those. And then we can just drag this down. And now our answer is 134, which hopefully is correct. Yes. Okay, so we've got the dark one. We already know where she is, but we have some additional rules. So previously, we found her using these clues. We worked out where her food was, and she had to move up, down, left, right, or diagonally. But now she will not come within 3 cells of Merlin on any map, within 1 cell of Arthur on any map, or into the same cell as any of these things. So we now have some new things. So within 3 cells of Merlin, I like to do it this way. So I'm going to make a copy and pop it here for reasons I'll explain in a minute, which are that if I change things on this map, it might change some of my other answers. So within 3 squares is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's Merlin. So she's going to want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 around here. East Camelot. We actually don't need the whole map because we know that's where she is, and that's where the banana is. She can't come within 1 square of King Arthur or 3 squares of Merlin. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 28, which I think doesn't change for this one. This copy and pasting approach I quite like. It works quite well. I actually learnt it on Bear Island for when I was trying to work out how on earth you solve that, watching other people's videos. It's a great way of approaching these things. And then on this map, we know she can't come within 3 squares of Merlin, or 1 square of Arthur. She can't come into the same square as any of these things, so she can't come around this way. She can't come over the wall, so she's got to go all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we can't hit the thing, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm going to write 20 there so I don't lose track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should be able to now add those up. So we had 45, we had 15, and we had 28. Is that correct? 88 it is. And side quest 5, as following the quest 12 movements. Quest 12, that's misnamed, apologies. The movements in quest 6 for this one. After the enemies moved 10 times, how many enemies are within each of the army ranges? Give your answers in the form A hash K hash dash S hash, where A is archer, K is knight, and S is soldier, and S is the number of enemies. For example, 6 in the archer's range, 4 in the knight's range, and 2 in the soldier's range would be A6, K4, S2. Do not double count enemies, only count them for the closest range they are in. So we worked out after a couple of steps, we need to model something out now for the Battle of Camelot. So we need a list, first of all of our enemies. So let's grab our enemy list. That's these 4 here. I'm going to bring this into our side quest. And we want to filter the starting cells based on whether or not the icon is number X match, whether or not the icon appears in our enemy list. So those are our enemies, and we're just going to look up each of those in the Battle of Camelot list to find out which enemy we are talking about, because we then need to look each of these up to get their speed. Which is here. I accidentally added in a hash. There we go. Start, type, and speed. So this is 0 moves, and then we wanted 10 moves. I'm just going to pull this in again here. And then we're going to use the exact same logic we used here. So let's just go grab that logic, bring it into here, and then we will fix things as we go. So we're going to start on that cell, and we're going to use that as our speed. And that's where we are ending up. But now we need to know whether they're in the knight's range. Oh, that NA should not be happening. Because that imp is very far down at its start. So they can't get past row 44. So we're just going to, let's just lock that one in manually, and that's fine. Because if we look at our Battle of Camelot map, we can see, the soldier range is anything below row 39. The knight range is a little more complicated because it stops at the river, and the archer range stops at the forest. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to create one more version of this map down here. And we're going to say, all of these are soldiers. All of these are knights. With a K. And then the bridges all the rest of the green are going to be our archers. A little bit tedious. There are probably faster ways of doing this, but sometimes thinking of the fast way takes longer than getting ahead and doing it, and sometimes you just need to score those points. There are our archer spaces, and they've all gone a lovely shade of pink. So now I'm just going to turn that into a column in our little lookup. And in our side quest, we can look up our final position in our names and get what type we are. Finally, we wanted A, K, and S. We want to know how many is in each of those. And we want it of the form A23-K20-S12. Let's see if that is correct. And there we go. 100% all the bonuses. It's taken us nearly an hour, or just over an hour, apologies. But we have gone through explaining them all as we go. So I hope this has brought to you some sense of some of those things you can practice for those map cases. I would hope nothing is quite this difficult in FMWC UK, or indeed anything beyond on the live stages in Vegas. This is a very difficult map case. But hopefully you have seen how we can work through it, how we can build those things up, and maybe even learned a couple of tricks along the way. If any of these tricks are new to you, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Equally, if you've got your own solve, post a link down below and tell me how you approach these kinds of questions. For now though, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you follow the channel to see everything that's coming from FMWC UK, including the live stream of our live finals in September. And until next time, keep excelling.